Welcome to Body Hack and Build a Better You, the podcast where we unlock the secret to living a longer, healthier life and create a bloom zone in our life and within our family. I'm your host, Michele, and I'm here to provide you with the tools and knowledge to empower you to build a better you, one essential building block at a time. In today's episode, I will talk with a health coach that found out her cells are not so healthy. What happens then? Come and listen to Michele, who has a doctorate in physical therapy, Bachelor in exercise science, 200 plus hours yoga certification, EFT accredited certification practitioner, PN level 1 nutrition certification, women's health certification, online trauma informed yoga certification, and somatic healing certification. And yet, she had missed the importance of aiming for an omega balance, and how she resisted taking a test for over 6 months, and how she today is now helping people truly change your health from the inside out. So come and listen to this interesting story. I want to remind you that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Read the disclaimer in the show notes, and I want to remind you to always consult your healthcare provider if you plan to make any dietary changes. And now, let's start the episode. Hey guys, before we start today's episode, I just want to remind all the pregnant women out there to please go and read on your prenatal supplementation. I just helped a girl in Bulgaria to understand her intake of the EPA and DHA content in her prenatal, and it showed that her prenatal only gave her 200 milligrams of EPA and only 50 milligrams of DHA. Me, myself, without being pregnant, need 1,300 milligrams of EPA and over 700 milligrams of DHA. So if you're pregnant, you also have to consider the baby's weight into the calculation. So her prenatal was way too low to promote a healthy brain development in her baby and also a healthy mother's health, since we also need to protect our own brain, because if we're not eating enough, we will give too much to the baby. So this is just a reminder, but let's get on and let's start the show. Welcome back to Body Hack and Build a Better You podcast. I'm sitting here with our lovely Michele. Michele, can you tell the crowd a little bit about you? Because you have she have lots of education, and she have been helping people to improve their lifestyle and their life for a long period of time. And give us a short introduction of what is it that you are doing and what kind of education do you have as a background?
Yeah, so I have my doctorate in physical therapy. So I did that for quite a while, but then I moved into health, like preventative health. So I became a personal trainer, a health coach, a yoga teacher. I'm also credentialed in EFT or tapping. And so I use all that to really help women 40 and older to get healthy and stay healthy, because we only have this one life and we have to take care of it, because we're not going to get that information from our doctor. We're only going to get help if we are sick or if something is wrong. But there's so much that we can do before all of that.
Lovely. And getting back to I always love to hear the story behind the story. So what made you, first of all, get into physical therapy and so on? What inspired you to get into that when you first got started?
Yeah, I actually had a hamstring injury when I was in high school. I was a cheerleader. And so I went and saw a physical therapist, and then that sort of sparked it for me, but it was helping people to heal from injuries and help people. So I've always wanted to help people in some way.
And so it started already there. And what changed along the way that made you go further into health and nutrition? And I have been following you for quite some time. I know Michelle, right now we're sitting in her living room here in Phoenix, Arizona. I got to meet her when I was living here. Um, oh, when I come here now, it feels like I'm coming back home.
Yeah.
I am pretty emotional today because I've been missing the sun and I've been missing the blue sky.
You'll get plenty while you're here.
Yeah, but so I got to know Michele from when I was living here. She's a good friend of mine, and I have been following her for quite some time, and she's doing an amazing job helping and inspiring women over 40, and you also have a podcast, right?
Mhm.
What's the podcast name? You're allowed to.
Healthy Beyond 40.
So you should check her podcast out if you're, yeah, about 40 and wanting to make sure that you have the vitality and the strength that you need to be able to approach aging in a better way. Because we need our muscles.
Yes.
That is the biggest problem when we're getting old, that we're losing our muscle mass. So it's so important with working out.
Mhm.
But what made you then go from being a traditional practitioner, can I say that?
Yeah.
To like going into health coaching and that route?
Yeah. I think it started, so I have 4 kids, but after my third kid, I started to gain a little weight and all the kids were little, so things were hard. And I remember going up a flight of stairs and being out of breath. And it's like, okay, like I don't want this for my life. Something has to change, and it can be simple. So that sort of got me more back into that personal training and health coaching, wanting to work in that preventative health. Like we don't have to work out for a long time. We can do 10 minutes and we're going to be better off than if we do nothing. And the same thing with nutrition. We can go back to the basics. We don't have to follow a diet. So that sort of started to push me into that more preventative health and getting into the personal training and health coaching too.
And then when I met you, we started having a conversation about cellular health. I cannot even pronounce it today. I'm a little bit jet lagged. But we were starting to have a conversation. And what was your first initial thought about it when we started having that conversation?
Yeah, I really hadn't heard that much. Obviously, we know the body's made up of a bunch of cells, but it's really not talked that much. And I think it also goes back to the idea of medicine today is a disease model. And so when we come to preventative health, it's just not talked about at all. So we're not talking about the cellular health and what we can do to improve our cells that affect everything in our body. Um, and when I went on to look at it, like after talking to you, there's like so much research too, like by conventional doctors and all these things. There's so much research out there, but it's not really like into the hands of people or doctors who are like seeing patients either.
It's just not packaged into a way for people to understand that this is something like I've been going back to so many books for that is written for both for doctors and nurses and so on to just see what is actually written in the books. And it's like kind of a message hidden below, and people don't get the connection unless it's packaged differently. So it's frustrating that when you're going through so much education that you don't even know the function of it, like the foundation of it. So it's like educating a person that is going to make up the drawings for a house and then just leave out how strong the foundation need to be.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because you can't build a house upon a foundation that's going to crumble. And that's basically what we're doing. We're not educating people on what our foundation is so that we can make sure that we're getting what we need for the foundation and then have a house that is working. So,
Yeah.
and like you said, there's so much research and data behind it. So as soon as you get your eyes open and as soon as you see your own test result and it's red, 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 you cannot unsee what you have seen,
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the research you first started doing when you first looked, and if you're comfortable sharing, what was your test result?
Yeah, my test result. So someone who I would consider healthy and has been taking care of herself was 37-1. And like I thought it would be better, but it's really like not surprising once you like learn about it. Like I wasn't eating fish. It had been quite a while since I took like an omega supplement, but it probably wasn't even like that good anyways. So yeah, 37-1. So lots of red, very far from what my body needs.
And for you who doesn't know what 37-1 means, it's in our body, we have pro-inflammatory building blocks, we have anti-inflammatory building blocks. They're both essential. And when something is essential, it means we cannot live without it. So we need to either eat it or we need to supplement with it. So in her case, she had plenty enough of the essential fatty acids that are pro-inflammatory, but she did not have enough of the anti-inflammatory building blocks. You should have equal amounts, but she had 37 of the pro versus anti. So basically 37 times too many of the pro-inflammatory building blocks, which easily talked about can say 37 times too much inflammation going on in every single cell of your body. And that is a easy way to explain it for everyone to like kind of get the idea of when it's that bad and it should be equal amounts. You start understanding that that unbalance is not very healthy and long term can have big side effects on our health. It doesn't mean that you need to have a bunch of symptoms today, because a lot of the symptoms if we're going back to the conversation about disease, what is really disease? What is really disease? And this is something I like to challenge people about, because often when we're looking at disease, it's just symptoms. And what is it a symptom of? Most of the times, it's a symptom of the body not functioning correctly. It's a symptom of having a dysregulated microbiome. It is a symptom of you not having enough of energy production in your cells. It is a symptom of you not having enough of the nutrients you need to be able to keep the factories running in your body. So whenever you're having a symptom, it's usually just your body crying that it cannot function. It's not able to anymore. And why it's not able to? And we aren't taught to think in this way. We're taught that a disease is happening exactly like a virus or a bacteria. It just happens to us. And it's something we have to endure and ride out. And that can be the card deck we got dealt in life. But there is so much things we can do about it if we start thinking another way and making sure that we have all the essential vitamin, minerals, fatty acids, and proteins in our body. That is the foundation, what we really need to be able to have a body that can prosper. So coming back to your test result, and I was asking you, like, what did you start researching after that? Like, what was the first thing you started reading about?
Yeah, I mean, you can really just Google and like articles from PubMed come up, and omegas are like the top 5 most researched nutrients. Like the top 5, like, and how are doctors not talking about this? So you can find a lot of information. There's also a book, I can't think of the name, that I've read that, I mean, it's so amazing because when you talk about omegas and the omega-3s that we need that we don't get enough of, they affect all parts of our body. So when symptoms show up, it shows up different for everybody. So it's sort of like a magic cure-all. It may not cure things per se, but it works in so many different pieces of the body. So for me, it showed up in my skin. After my 4th kid, my skin on my chin and my neck, it was rough and dry, and it like kept spreading to parts of my face. And once you learn about omegas, this is like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because moms, the baby pulls it from us. So if we're not getting enough omegas, the baby's going to pull it from our brain. So we can get these symptoms that especially get worse during or after pregnancy too. So that's how I saw it show up in my body. And then as I started dosing and taking it, like it started to clear up pretty quickly. And I mean, I struggled with this for 5 years. Like, you know, trying different topical stuff, like doing all different things. Nothing worked because it was a problem with my cellular health that I was not working on.
And isn't it fascinating, struggling with something for 5 years? You take a test, you just make sure that you're getting enough of omega-3s, and then things are just clearing up. And I'm not saying that it's going to clear up everyone's skin that is listening to this. This is just a good side effect that Michele had on her body as she was striving to get into balance. So we never know what's going to happen with anyone's body, but what we do know is that skin issues are usually very related to cellular health and also gut health issues. And omega-3 is also playing a big role in your gut health. So having enough of omega-3 can help support your microbiome, help support not struggling with leaky gut as much, and also help every cell in your body. And since your skin is also cells, if you're able to improve every single cell in your body with 1%, 5%, 10%, it's interesting what's going to happen to your body. And I mean, I also struggled with skin issues and hormonal acne, and especially during my red weekly month prior. And I'm not going to say my skin is perfect today, but I have seen a big change in my appearance. And I was just sitting and looking back at pictures 10 years ago. And I've been in Omega Balance now for 5 years. And it's fascinating because I do not look any older today. I actually look younger right now than I did 10 years ago, which is fascinating. And it's just a result, it's just a reflection over my gut bacteria, over how my cells are doing. And yeah, it's just fascinating how it can help.
Yeah.
It's if I knew about this growing up, I wouldn't be as worried about aging. But I'm happy that I found it now so that I can not have to be so worried about aging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Michele, is there anything else that you started noticing, or was skin the biggest thing you noticed?
Skin was definitely the biggest thing for me. That was like my major symptom. And sort of like we're saying, it shows up different in everybody's body. And I think the thing that's interesting about the skin, and I know you've mentioned this before too, is like the skin cells repair quicker than other cells. So a lot of times when you start taking the balance oil, you'll see it show up in your skin first. And also as a health coach, like I've seen with my clients who have high blood pressure and they're on blood pressure medication. And then they start taking the omega oil because they were out of balance and their blood pressure starts going down. And then they have to lower their dose. And this client I've had now, she was on 2 blood pressure medications and now she's able to get off. And did her doctor offer this to her before medication? No, not at all. And so that, I mean, I really like talking about health and the inside of our body and all. I mean, it's so important for us to live long and have a good heart and blood vessels. And I mean, something like that is so important.
Hold on. This is so huge. Do you know how long time she had been on that high blood pressure medication?
I don't know. I don't know.
But she was on 2 different high blood pressure medication, which usually indicates that she had probably been on 1 and then eventually 2, which indicates that she had probably been struggling for longer than just a year or 2, like probably longer than that. Because I also had a client that he was on 2 different high blood pressure medication. He was on the maximum dosage of both. And if you want to hear his story, I have a earlier episode about him. His name is Bill if you want to do a search. And I can link in the show notes too, which episode I'm referring to. But it's so huge that we're seeing over and over and over again how omega-3 can have a very positive effect on high blood pressure. But it's not any type of omega-3. It needs to be an omega-3 that is helping people get in omega balance. So that's why I'm like talking again about omega balance. We need to balance out omega-6 and omega-3. People can take an omega-3 supplementation and have no health benefits whatsoever because it's not helping you in omega balance. And a lot of the times, if the supplementation have been smelling fish, it tasted fish. And if you don't know if it tastes fish, if you're taking a capsule, open it up, smell it, taste it, put it on your tongue. And if it's smelling or tasting, it's already rancid and it can cause more harm than benefit. So please don't use it. But when people are getting an omega balance, we see it over and over again, how people's bodies just start responding positively. And going to PubMed, you can do research to cardiovascular disease omega ratio. And it says that like in Western diets, the ratio is about 15:1. And if we can lower it down to 4:1 or lower, in the secondary prevention of cardiovascular disease, a ratio of 4:1 was associated with 70% decreased risk in mortality.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's so big. When we're looking at that and then seeing a client that is then getting off, and she's not getting off by herself, it's her doctor, right, that is telling her you don't need it anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And seeing that and knowing that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in the world right now, and knowing that just talking about this can help reduce the risk to die prematurely with 70%, with helping people get in omega balance. How did that make you feel when you were like, when your client got in contact with you and said like, I do not need my high blood pressure medication anymore? Like, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I think it's so exciting because like I said, like, of course I want my skin to look good, but like external things don't matter. But helping someone get healthier on the inside, knowing that that's going to help them live longer and live better, I mean, how many people are on medications? They have to go to their doctor all the time, and then they need this heart procedure, and now they also have like high blood sugars, and it snowballs when we can start to making sure that we're getting a high quality omega-3 and lowering that inflammation in our body. I mean, it's huge. Like, that's what I love to do.
And just for your information, like I do not care what type of omega you are using as long as it's getting an omega balance. That is the goal here. It's not the special product. It is your own body's ability to heal itself under the right circumstances. And that's why it's so important to stop guessing and actually measure. Where are you? What kind of supplementation are you using? What dosage? Test again, and then you can see if you're getting an omega balance. And if you're not getting an omega balance, you just have to research another supplementation or trying another dosage. But the whole goal is to get in omega balance, and it should not be with a fish oil that smells fish, because then it's already rancid. It should be a fresh fish oil. And I do love the combination of fish oil and extra virgin olive oil because the polyphenols are just working differently than vitamin E. If you're looking at your label at home, if it says mixed tocopherol, that's another word for vitamin E. It's not helping the fish oil enough. So we need the polyphenols. So if you're at home, you don't know what supplementation you're using and you're looking at your cabinets right now, look for that. But then really measure it. And that is when the magic is starting to happening, when we're getting an omega balance. So, but we are both here because we love helping people and we love seeing the transformation. And you're like helping so many women feel better, become stronger, feel more empowered in their life. And it's how is it to have this tool now to work with where you can, like, instead of just hoping something is going to work, that we're guessing, to actually be able to take some blood work before and after and test it with your clients?
Yeah, and a little side note, I mean, it's so frustrating, like doctors aren't even testing people's omega levels. And we literally have this technology. Like, I don't understand that. But yes, to be able to give a client a test to take and have this objective measurement that we can use is so helpful. You know, because when we look at health, there's all these pieces, our fitness, what we eat, but we can't, if we don't have enough omega-3, like we can't do anything about that besides testing and making sure that we're getting it and absorbing it, like you're saying. So it's been really good to be able to have that tool and to be able to let clients know and let clients see the proof, and then to have them take the supplement and to retest. Like, and just that testing and retesting is so huge. They a lot of times don't do this in conventional medicine either. A long time ago, I had low vitamin D and they gave me a vitamin D test. Oh, you're low. And I had to like ask to be tested again. Like, it should be common sense to making sure that your body's absorbing, because absorption with lots of nutrients really can vary on the person and your gut health and all that. So it's important to test and retest and making sure that you're getting what your body needs.
Yes, and you kind of touched on it, how frustrating it is that the doctors are not offering this kind of testing. And it's fascinating because if you go to Google Scholar and you just search for omega-3 and ratio, it's over 2.5 million publications around omega-3 and ratio that are peer-reviewed articles. And when you're doing the same thing with vitamin B12, it's only like 1.5 million of publications. And yet doctors are measuring your vitamin B12 and they are giving you shots or supplementations for that, but they are not doing anything for omega-3. And it's super frustrating when we know that it's playing a crucial role in every single cell of your body. Okay, that was just another side note because I was like,
Yeah.
I get so passionate about it because it do make such a big difference, and I get very frustrated about it as well. And I do believe, like 25 years into the future, the doctors will test and measure this, but we always have to ask who is influencing doctors and what they know, and that is usually the medical industry. And when we're seeing the results people are having, we're kind of understanding that if this was mainstream knowledge, then the need for medication would probably not be as big, and that would cause a big profit loss, and that would cause So I understand also that they're prolonging to implement this into the medical field as long as possible. We know it took them about 30 years before they implemented vitamin D testing and supplementing with vitamin D when people were sick. Even if they had already had data, even if they already knew the importance of it, it took them 30 years to implement it. So that's why I'm talking about, I do believe in 25 years, they cannot not test for this. But until then, we just have to take the matter into our own hands and just make sure that we're taking responsibility over our own health. Do you have any more comments about that?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, you think about this blood pressure that we were talking about. If that's not a problem because they're telling their patients to take omega oil, then they don't have to give them drugs. And the drug companies run the doctors.
Also, like on high blood pressure medication, it says that you cannot take omega oil while you're on it. And the reason for that is because it's interfering with the dosage. You wouldn't need as much, or yeah. It might be other claims that if someone is listening to this that is in that field have to back it up, but it's just fascinating to me how they're labeling that.
Yeah, I didn't know that part. That's sort of humorous.
Yeah, it's funny, especially when we have seen so many examples of people truly changing. So Michele, if you would start your own certification for health coaching and helping other health coaches to get educated, would omega ratio and cellular health be a part of that education?
Absolutely. And I think it's like one of the easiest things to do. Like, if you're just a person looking to get healthy, it's interesting we put it off. I even put off testing myself. Like, I knew what you guys were doing for a little while, but I don't know. But yeah, it's like once you take the test, like, oh my goodness, it's worse than I thought. Like, why didn't I do that earlier? So I think it's a really, yeah, were you gonna say something?
I was going to say, I just met a woman today and she got this information 2 years ago. And she just today uh, went through a test result she did a few weeks ago. And she just today started with omegas. And I was asking her, like, why you got the information 2 years ago? She was actually to a seminar with me and she listened to Dr. Paul Clayton, one of the guys that have so much knowledge about this. And I was like, where did this miscommunication go from you hearing the information and yet it took over 2 years for you to implement it? And she's like, you know what? It's on me. Like, I came back home. I knew I had a doctor's appointment. I knew there was going to do some more testing. I did not want to spend the money. And I was wanting to see what the doctor's tests were going to show me before. And then she went that, and then life happened, and there was one thing after another, and she just forgot about it. And it kept on coming up a little bit here and there, but she was just like, I don't really have a good answer, but I'm on the journey now. Like, that's the most important.
Yeah.
But also we got into the conversation because she's like, there were so many people around in her family that really, really need it, and especially young children with a developing brain that have been starting to show maybe some types of delays that she was worried about. And one kid that was seizuring, and I'm like, you guys, if you're listening to this now, don't wait to take the test. Take the test, get yourself in order, because when you start feeling the effect, you're going to be able to inspire mothers to get started while she's pregnant and kids to get started while they're small, so that we can impact the brain development in a positive way as quick as possible. And the reason why I'm always talking about brain development is because our brain, 60% of the fatty acids in our brain is built up with DHA that comes from omega-3. If you have a mother that is not wanting to eat fish, we are taking supplementations that are not working, that kid is gonna struggle with brain development due to not having enough of essential building blocks. So that was a side note. So I was like, okay, I don't want to say that to her, but I'm just thinking inside of me, like, what if she would just have started 2 years ago? You also, as a health coach, you heard about the information and you were a little bit resistant from just trying, and you don't even know why you were waiting so long.
Yeah, I don't really know why. And I didn't wait that long, but it was probably like 6 months. And I think it was probably that, like, I thought I was healthy, like, because I was eating well, I was exercising, I was doing a lot of those other pieces. But again, unless I'm eating a ton of fish or supplementing, there's no way I'm going to have a good omega level. So I think getting that test and seeing mine was like sort of eye-opening. Like, yeah, you can't just not eat the more inflammatory omega-6s and have a good ratio. Like you need enough of that omega-3. And like you said, it's huge in kids' health too, and with moms. Like you look up anything about ADHD and you see omega oil there all the time.
So that was actually like when I found the concept of getting people in omega balance. I have already been preaching about omega-3 for over 6 years. I was really worried about my own son. I had been doing so much research. I've been reading so many books about healing the gut, ADHD, schizophrenia, like natural remedies, and everything that is always coming up in every single book I was reading was omega-3. Make sure that you're supplementing with omega-3. And even if I read all of those books, there was not a single of those books that actually explained why to look up omega-3. They never talked about it being an essential part. Like they could say like omega-3 is good for your brain health, but there was never anything explaining how important it is for every single cell of your brain, for every single cell of your body. So even if I knew how important omega-3 was, and even if I had already, like my whole family was supplementing on omega-3, my mom and dad was supplementing, everyone I knew that I was talking health with, I told them all the time, you need omega-3 because it's really important, especially for gut health. There are so many authors out there that are specialized in natural remedies for gut health, and they're also just talking about omega-3 in every single thing. I know that we have a doctor up here, he have a special protocol too, which is also including pro and prebiotic fibers and omega-3 for gut health, and he have been treating kids for many years, and have become very famous for it. So it's a part every time when we're talking about natural remedies. So I already had a knowledge about it being good, but I still didn't understand the depth of being able to measure and restore, because I did not know that omega-3 need to be balanced with omega-6. I had no knowledge about it. And now I'm so happy. There are lots of bigger influencers that is influencing people to do better food choices out there on Instagram that are starting to talk about omega balance. And I'm so excited about it. But we need to be more people are taking this into our own hands, because we cannot sit around and wait for it to appear in the books, because we don't want to suffer through all of the potential problems that can happen due to lacking essential stuff. Sorry, I cut you off. Did you have more stuff you wanted to?
Oh, I think we were talking about if I were to teach other health coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think definitely starting with that, because one, even though I had that resistance to doing it first, it's like super easy for someone to do. So when we're making changes in health, it can be hard to change what we're doing or make time for exercise, but it's really not that hard to, take a shot of a high quality omega-3 like every day.
It's like a 1 second shot, guys. 1 second.
Yeah. So it's a super easy thing for someone to do. And again, when you have this inflammation on the inside, if you don't have enough of those omega-3s, everything else you're trying to do isn't going to be what your body needs. So if we can start with that omega-3 balance first and then roll into the other things. How can we eat more whole foods? Like what tactics can we do? How can we work on balancing our blood sugar and exercise and add all that? But I think it's a very easy thing to start with.
And looking at things we're doing, except for like eating healthy and maybe changing some food to organic food versus traditional food, but there are so many things people are spending so much money on out there, and it's just going to give you so result. Like this is the best value for what you can spend for the result you're getting. And for me, it's a no-brainer. Like for me, it's like the first test. If people would only do one test throughout their whole life, it would be an omega balance test. Because everything else, like vitamin D, yeah, your vitamin D test can be bad, but why is it really bad? Because you're not having functioning microbiome, and you're not going to be able to convert the vitamin D into an active form. And why not? Like omega-3 is playing a big part in that. So omega-3 is like, it's playing a big part in everything. So your vitamin B12 levels can be worse, your vitamin D can be worse, your food sensitivities can be worse, and everything can be worse because you're lacking omega-3. So if you are getting enough of omega-3, usually what happens is that people that have been testing a lot of other tests, after they get an omega balance and they take those tests again, just like high blood pressure tests, they're seeing an improvement. So whatever your test result showed you, the truth they were showing you may not be the truth 6 months, 12 months down the road after getting an omega balance. So yeah, I needed to
Yes.
get that out there too.
Yeah, so definitely test. If you're in doubt, just test.
Yes, that is Michelle's sentence for today. Okay, Michelle. So now when you are on this journey of being in the omega balance, I know that you're also a mom and you're a very passionate mom of 4 children. She's homeschooling them. She's like rocking life. And if you see her on YouTube now, you'll see her like, she's so cute and petite and lovely. And yeah, if you ever need yoga lessons too, I know that you have like online yoga program. Go and follow her. She's amazing. But how does it feel being a mom, having this knowledge, being able to test your kids? But not only that, you're able to now affect not only what your kids are doing, but your kids will most likely transfer that to the next generation. How does that feel to know that you are empowering them with knowledge that is so beneficial long term and for the generations to come?
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't take much to look around here in the US, but I think even other countries too. I mean, obesity is just getting worse and worse. Health is just like declining. And I'm sure if you guys have had someone in your families watching with heart disease and all these other things, it's really sad. And, we don't want that for our kids. And so we always have to start with the parents first, because if the parents aren't educated and doing some of these things themselves, obviously the kids are not going to. So we have to start with the parents, so then the parents can, like you said, pass that education onto their children. And even my daughter, who is 17, she kept having eczema spots. And she took an omega test and she was maybe 36 to 1. I mean, pretty close to whatever mine was, which isn't surprising, right? Like, because we all eat, sort of the same things. I would say I ate healthier than her, but it doesn't matter if you're not getting that omega-3 in. And so she started taking the
Omega-3 multivitamin and
the prebiotic. She stopped taking it, and you can't control a 17-year-old. And she recently got a flare up, and she's like, okay, like I'm going to take it. And so for 2 months now, she's been serious about it, and she hasn't had a flare up. But so she has this knowledge, and she's seen how it affects her skin. And of course, like she doesn't want these patches on her skin. And I also think along with that, teaching our kids just the basics of eating healthy and exercise are super important, because they are going to grow up and leave our house, and we want them to have that foundation so that they can be healthy and they're not having diabetes and heart disease and all these different things that are preventable. Like, I don't know what the percentage is. It's very high that they're preventable diseases. I mean, most of those diseases are a disease of what we're eating or not eating, in the case of omegas.
And how much we're moving and how
Yes.
much. So there is a lot of components, but yeah, like a lot of people are talking about 80 to 90% of all diseases that we are experiencing could be preventable with lifestyle changes and with food, our food habit changes. I was just so happy today. I just saw on it was social media though, but I'm pretty confident that the clip was real and it was not AI made. I haven't fact checked it yet, but it looked like they are banning Kellogg's products in the state of Texas to be served in schools because of they are having artificial colorings that are harmful for people that they're not having in the same Kellogg's products that they're selling to Canada, other places. So it's a push to make like the whole company to need to take those additives out for the American population too, and not only for stricter countries like Canada to be able to sell it. So I'm so happy that that is something that is happening right now here in the United States, and every movement towards inspiring people to choose better. But again, the time we're living in, it's hard for people to know. Like we believe that if something is in the food store, it should be labeled as food and it should be okay for us to consume. And it's not. It can be very harmful for our body, and we're never taught to question it. We are taught to just use the money and spend it on products. And when you get sick, you go to the doctors and they have a solution for you, a solution that is usually just making you survive versus thrive. So anyway, that was another exciting news for like the positive changes that are about to happen, because people are waking up. People are waking up, and we're more and more people out there that are starting to be pretty loud as we are questioning why things are like they are.
Yeah.
So yes, it's so fun to be able to see that we can impact the next generation. And doesn't that feel good as being a mom, and you like know that, because now you have done an extensive, a lot of research too about what omega deficiency can bring. And just knowing that we are like helping our kids be a little bit more on the safer zone when it comes to what they potentially could develop disease-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard for kids. I mean, in schools and their friends, I mean, it's always like crappy food, red dyes, lots of sugar, highly processed carbs. And, you know, we can't control everything they're going to eat, but can we at least make sure that they're getting enough omega-3s and that their body isn't as inflammatory? We can reduce that by just a simple high quality omega-3 oil.
I want to do a side note on that too, because it's so true. Like sometimes I used to eat so healthy, and I still felt like crap. And then I was just implementing some supplementation. I just changed. I was already using supplements. I just changed my supplementation regime. I dosed it according to my body weight. And I did all of those changes. And suddenly my body started feeling so good. So today, I am not eating as strict. I am not eating always as clean. I still try to do a good job. But like now we have moved back to Norway. And I have to admit, Norwegian candy is so delicious. Like I had no problem being in the United States and never eating candy. Like it did not, I could go through the aisles and there was nothing that looked tempting to me. I know it just tastes not good for me. I grew up with Scandinavian quality of, like, if you give me a piece of Hershey's, I like almost puke because I think it's so nasty. So anyway, but coming back to Norway, and I've been like eating and eating candy probably like 3 times a week. And it's not good. I'm not, but I know it's just everything tastes so good. And I just want to try everything I haven't had for the past 4 years. So I've been on a binge, but it's so fascinating that even if I'm on a binge, I can still feel so much better and so much healthier now than when I was eating so clean and so strict for so many years, when I was trying to figure out what my body was dealing with prior to, like, when I was just so sick before. And the message is like, as long as we're feeding the body what it needs, it can handle more stressors. It can handle more things that may not benefit the body so much, but it can handle more of it because we are creating better circumstances for the body to just function. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Thank you so much for inspiring people and women over 40 to live healthier, better, stronger life. And thank you very much for all the work you're doing, Michele. You're amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today.
Lovely. And let's go out. Let's create more buzz about this.
Yeah.
Let's empower more women.
Absolutely.
To create more blue zones, because that's really what's happening. People are living healthier for a longer period of time. So let's go out and create more blue zones out there in people's families.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to do one thing for me. Think of one person you want to share this podcast with and copy the link and send it right away. Thanks for playing an important role in the Blue Zone community. And if you want to keep on building a better you, one essential building block at a time, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next episode.